Maybe. All right, there we are. Hey, welcome everybody. It is the 1st of May. Happy May Day. I don't know what May Day is, but people are doing all kinds of things today. But we used to take May baskets to people in people's house and put them on their door, something nice. And I haven't done that in years, but that was one of the things we used to do. Popcorn and what did we have in there? Fudge, I think it was. My grandma used to take us. It was delicious, but it was not low glycemic, which is one of the chapter topics that we're talking about tonight. So we're doing chapters 9 through 11 tonight, and I'm going to start off with chapter 9 because it's chock full of great information. Chapter 10 are some plans for you to use. There's some. I'm just going to touch on that gently, and we're going to go back to chapter 9. But it just talks about how to put it all together. It's got some, it talks about meal replacements, but it also talks about other foods that you can use that you can use in the to achieve your goals and just to live a healthier lifestyle. It has a nice list of sample fuelings that you can eat because on page. Let's see, on page 118, it talks about how many calories to eat each meal. There's a couple of different options. So one of the things it talks about fueling breaks and PCMRs, which are meal replacements, are one option, easy grab and go stuff. Or you can look at the sample fueling breaks. And if anybody wants them, I have a more comprehensive list that I've added to over the years. So I'd be happy to share that. I can post it on our group page. So if you're interested in that, but it gives you a lot of ideas of things that you can do. They're just 100 calories because you want to eat every 2.5 to 3 hours. That's one of the things that helps keep your blood sugars balanced, and that's really what is going to help you get healthier. So let's talk about that a little bit, and you guys jump in with any questions. Anytime, just jump in. If you want, down at the bottom of your screen and on the toolbar, there's a chat feature. You're welcome to use that. If you don't want to raise your hand or jump in, or you don't want to interrupt or feel like you interrupt, you're not going to interrupt. We're chatting here, but you can ask a question there too if you're more comfortable with doing that. So remember that if you've got a question, someone else probably has that question, either on the playback or here tonight with us. So please don't feel uncomfortable bringing up points or something that struck you. I want you all to feel comfortable doing that. So Dr. Anderson has really talked about, I meant to get my 9-inch plate, but he really talked about the food pyramid we've had for many years. They've just changed it up, and but it was a pyramid, but it did not differentiate between foods that are better for you or not so good for you. So like on the bread, part of the pyramid, it didn't differentiate between white flour bread and whole grain breads or different things like that. So it didn't give you any differentiation. It just said, have 1 or 2, I can't remember, 2 servings of this a day. It gave you some serving options, but it didn't really tell you how to make better choices for yourself. So that is one of the things that I really like about Dr. Anderson's program. So if you want to, on the first page, on page 9, it talks about how his charts are organized. There's a dark green band, and it has different items in there, and those are the lowest glycemic level. And so those are the best choices, everyday choices for weight loss and just optimizing your health. So you might be at a healthy weight. Some of us are at a healthy weight, but we want to get even healthier, and we want to keep our organs functioning well. We want to, as we age, get healthier instead of, our bodies breaking down like they typically do. So we want to choose as much as we can from the dark green, and then the light green is moderate glycemic foods. Sorry. Oh yeah, sorry. No, don't be sorry. What?
What page did you say you were on?
Oh, I'm on page 93.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. First page in chapter 9. So the light green, those are low glycemic, or lower, not as low, but they're still low glycemic foods, moderate glycemic. So those are foods that you would eat in moderation. So, you know, you would still include those, but maybe you wouldn't eat them every meal, or you wouldn't eat them every day even. And then the red charts are the high glycemic foods, and those are foods that are typically to be avoided. So let's go look at a couple of those charts. And let's start with page 99 when we look at the vegetables. So even vegetables have different glycemic levels. And if you'll look on page 99, the very lowest, they're less than 30 on the glycemic index. And it lists all kinds of vegetables to choose from. Those would be everyday vegetables. And I think, what did he call those? What's that word? Functional foods. Functional foods. So those are the best, those are the best. And, you can never go wrong eating those. And then, of course, the ones in the golden are a little bit higher. So you want to not eat those maybe as often. When we're on the weight loss portion of our program, those would be foods that we would not choose to eat during the weight loss piece, because they're a higher glycemic level, higher carbs, and they're a higher glycemic level. So you'd want to choose more from the low ones, or you'd want to choose exclusively from the low ones if you're on the weight loss portion. And they've done a study, and this book is a few years old, and I know he's getting ready to update it, but it does say that most Americans eat less than two or less servings of vegetables a day. A lot of them do. And I can say that there's been times in my life where that is, maybe I didn't even eat a vegetable. And if I did, it was French fries. So, that's something to keep an eye on and to be really cognizant about that. French fries are delicious, I know, but they're in the red group, just so you know. So even corn, and I'm surprised even corn is in the vegetable, because I thought corn was a grain, or it was listed as a grain, but it's not. So it talks about, carrots and peas, they're just a little higher. So that would be something you would eat just maybe as an accent. If you're just regular eating, it wouldn't be something that you would eat all the time. And I know my Iowa friends, corn is like, August is, you got to eat a little corn. But, you don't eat that all the time. It's a treat.
So can I ask a question about carrots?
Yeah.
I've wondered this. So when you cook them, it actually changes the glycemic index of them, because raw carrots have a glycemic index of 30, but cooked are 80.
Oh, wow. That's good to know.
I mean, that's what the chart says, but
Yeah.
I'm curious. I don't know.
Yeah. And really they're noticing, they found that cooking different foods really does change the glycemic index. When we go and talk about pastas that are al dente are lower glycemic than pastas that are cooked, maybe, that are cooked more.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, in our meltdown challenge and our health challenge that we have right now, we had a post where cold pasta is better, lower glycemic, and easier to digest than hot pasta. But you have to eat it cold. Isn't that interesting? So sometimes those things are little tricks that can really help. If you're craving some pasta, but you don't want to break the bank with your glycemic index, or just the smaller amount. Let's see. They talk a little bit, I'm not going to go into a lot of what they talk about for fresh foods. The differences are, look at your grocery store. He talks about, he really likes, organic foods. I know that some vegetables and fruits, they say it really doesn't make a big difference because they don't use pesticides and different things on those, but you have to do a little exploring about that kind of thing. He does, he talks about meat and trying to find grass-fed beef versus corn-fed beef. My IO friends are all grinning about that. And actually probably my Malad friends, because we have a lot of cattle here too. So anyway, and that kind of limiting your meat, those meat amounts. But anyway, let's go back to page 98. And it talks about how an easy way to lay out your plate. So Jamie talked about having a 9-inch plate. And you can get those at the grocery store, or you can get those at Walmart. Actually, hold on. Paper plate is a 9-inch plate. These are 9-inch plates. So if you want a guide, you can take that with you. You don't want to always eat on paper. But that's the size of the plate. What you do, according to on page 98, is you're going to take half of it is going to be vegetables and fruits, heavy on the vegetable, light on the fruit, because fruits are still higher in the glycemic level. And then you're going to divide it into quarters down here. So you've got it split in half, and you're going to divide into quarters. And a quarter is going to be your protein, which they say a serving of protein is about the size of a deck of cards. That's a good way to visually look at it. Which, how many of you have had a chicken breast that was probably half the size of this? You can save a lot of money on not eating so much meat, you guys. Yeah. And then the starches are a quarter of your plate. So that's just an easy guide. If your plate looks like that, half of it's vegetables with a little fruit, a quarter of it is protein, and a quarter of it is a starch. That's an easy way to know that you're eating pretty balanced that way. And let's see. Oh, if you go on throughout here, you can look and see they have really nice charts. And Jamie, you put yours on your fridge, didn't you? You printed them off.
I did. Yeah, I made them so they kind of fit on one page, because you can go to his website and actually print all these out, but I would have had 100 of them on my refrigerator, so I combined some of them, and then I think I have 3. They fit on 3 pieces of paper, so yeah, they're handy to look at. Yeah,
and actually he has a shopping list in there too that you can download, I believe. Isn't that just so that you know which vegetables and that sort of thing when you get there, because sometimes you don't think about that. What are the lower glycemic things? Some things are really obvious to us, like we probably shouldn't eat a ton of pasta, and those kind of things, and so it's just helpful to have that. So he has his fruit glycemic index, and you can see that some fruits are really high. Watermelon, that makes me kind of sad. So I would say, because it's a fruit, you wouldn't it wouldn't be something that you would totally cut out of your diet, but you could eat it periodically. But look at the ones that are really better for you: cherries and blackberries and lemons. What did I read today? That squeezing lemon in your water, it does help with your digestion, and it really it actually lowers the glycemic level, I want to say, on certain things. So, eating olives and avocados, we don't normally think of those as fruits, but that's what they are. Raspberries, tomatoes, of course, they're a fruit, but we don't always think of them that way. So you can use tomatoes. But, just kind of keep your mind on this, or keep your, you're thinking about this when you're choosing on a daily basis. Obviously, you're not going to cut out all these fruits. Though they have an unhealthy chart, and that includes French fries, onion rings, and fruit juices. Fruit juices are really empty calories. A lot of times they're not just pure juice, but you're so much better off eating the fruit than you are just drinking the juice, because all the fiber is taken out of it most of the time. A lot of fruit juice has apple juice in it, and an apple's great for you. An apple a day really helps. It helps lower cholesterol. It does a lot of good things for you. But drinking apple juice is a doctor friend of mine told me it's junk juice. And a lot of juice has that as a base. They may add other flavors to it, but if you look, a lot of those juices are just apple juice. So you're better off drinking water or something like that. As you go through proteins, he looks at, proteins. He talks about different omega-3s and that sort of thing, looking at those kind of things. Fat contents of meat, if you look on page 102, he has a nice chart for that. It's interesting how wild game is better for you than many of our, farm.
Why do you
meats.
think that is? What do you think it's
He
just because
said
I don't remember.
it contains much less saturated fat because an animal in the wild isn't fattened up. We tend to, and they're eating grass. They're not eating a lot of grain and that sort of thing. I suppose if you were raising deer, and you would have the same thing as if you were raising cow and feeding it corn and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. Talked about, the fat content in poultry. Obviously turkey is lighter, is less than chicken, but you can kind of look down. White meat is less fat, but it's really popular now to eat chicken thighs, but those can be made in a healthy way but you want to remove the skin. They're just a fattier part, but it does talk about to avoid fatty meats, hot dogs, and hamburgers. I'm guessing that if you you want to choose ground meat that's lower in fat, it can have quite a high fat content. So that's kind of the obvious. He talks about eggs. Now, this was something I didn't know. I don't remember reading this, but that you should limit your daily cholesterol to 200 milligrams, and that's the amount of one small egg. So you could take one small egg and add it to egg whites, though, if you wanted to make a larger omelet. That would be a way to go. And you can eat a lot of egg whites. So if you want to make but it's nice to have that yolk flavor in there. I mean, I like the yolk flavor. So one egg to maybe, a quarter cup or half a cup of egg whites, that'll make a pretty dang large omelet with that. But it cuts back on your cholesterol. He talks about legumes, how legumes are really good for you, particularly soy. So that's edamame. I always have a hard time with that one. In the green, it's lentils, black beans, soybeans, edamame, chickpeas. They're all high in protein also, which I think is really awesome. So it's a lower, with less fat, you get protein too. So it's a high protein, and soy is really the highest of the proteins. It says a cup of legumes give you 110 to 150 calories of the best fuel you can buy. So, good way to add that. On our weight loss program, you would not eat legumes because they are higher in carbs at this point, but definitely you would add them back in. He talks a little bit about soy. If you have questions about soy, that's there's different people are worried about it, for especially women, for estrogen levels and that kind of thing, but they really found that soy is not a counterindicator for any of those things. And actually, I have a friend who is a health coach. She's a oncologist, breast cancer oncologist, and she talks about how helpful it can be for people. I'm going to just encourage you to go through and look through this. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, it's just talking about, really, really being conscious about what you put in your body and eating every 2.5, 3 hours, choosing lower glycemic index. That's really important. Dairy products, if you're, to use sparingly, that was one of the things in there. Nuts are sparing, but they're still good for you. They have good, healthy fat in them. There's a chart that talks about cereals, breads, and pastas to choose from. I found just by the way, I found I haven't tried it yet, but I found I was recommended a pasta that you can get at Costco that's made out of soybeans, edamame pasta, and it's Mary, my friend Mary, said it was really good, so I'm going to try that. But anyway, and it talks a little bit about fat. Healthy fats are important. You want to have some healthy fats. He really, looks at. He really recommends that we kind of, choose olive oils and that sort of thing. Those are better for us, and we want to make sure that we get a variety of the omegas. So some give us omega-6, and some give us omega-9, and some give us omega-3. So we want to make sure that we need all of those together to work really well. And olive oil has most of those in it, so olive oil is a better choice. So water, drink water. It's so important for you. It helps you from overeating. I'm on page 114. I'm zooming through this because I'm taking all the time, Jamie. And
Okay.
helps remove toxins from your kidneys and pesticides and all that kind of thing. And I'll answer. So anyway, drink a lot of water, and you cannot drink too much water unless you have some medical conditions that facilitate that. But most people cannot drink too much water. And really, we recommend that you drink 100 ounces a day. 100. I know. 100. I try to get 4 of these in. It's 24 ounces. And then usually I've got a little something else, so try to get 100. And Shelby, you asked about baking. Oh, baking instead of veggie oil. I think you can use really applesauce. Applesauce is an option. What else? You can use
A banana
banana is good.
instead of a stick of butter, but you need to be careful because you can get that banana taste in there.
Yeah, and if you don't want that. Applesauce is usually, or you can cut your oil down with applesauce. There's another, what is it? It's minced, it's not raisins, but
Dates?
yeah, some dates. It comes in a gooey mess. You can use that and pour it in. So that, cut your oil back. It's amazing how much you can cut back versus oil.
I use applesauce a lot, and I never have noticed that it doesn't work. I don't notice it, I guess. It tastes good, or you can't really taste it if you get the unsweetened kind.
Yeah. I have a really great muffin recipe, and it's bananas, peanut butter. So it does have quite a bit it has peanut butter oil in it, or peanut oil in it, and eggs. That's all it is. So it's pretty low in carbs anyway. And it has chocolate chips in it. It's really delicious. But it's something that, if you're craving something and you're trying to, it has the consistency of cake or a muffin. It's really good. So if you're looking for a treat like that, anyway. All right, Jamie, any questions about this chapter? There's so much in there, you guys. All right. Okay, you want to go to chapter 11?
Yes, and chapter 11 is a big chapter too, so I'll just kind of skim through it really quickly, but I feel like there's a lot in there. I enjoyed reading it. It's more of the science stuff again, but I kind of like understanding how everything works together. So he's basically talking about the science of healthy eating and weight loss, that there's 3 core principles that are essential for reaching and maintaining a healthy weight. So the first one is fuel control, so mastering the calories and the insulin. He talks about portion control, using the 9-inch plate, the eating every 3 hours. And then also in this principle, he talks about the percentages and how it's right, how to focus on getting the right amount of carbohydrates in your daily calories. So carbohydrates would be 50%, and then the proteins would be 25%, and then the fats, the healthy fats would be 25% too. So, which really goes along with the way the 9-inch plate's divided out. And he talks about, think somewhere, maybe it's in another section where he talks about the energy density of foods. Yeah. Okay, so then the second core principle is the hunger control. So the science of fullness. I can't say that word, so I'm not even going to try.
What page are you on?
On page 138.
Okay.
So, and that how you can control that feeling of fullness with the volume. So eating foods that are low density, so that contain a lot of water, but are high volume, so you can eat more of them. So like vegetables and fruits are good examples of that. And then controlling your intake through energy density. And I like this section. It talks in there how that energy density number is already an important part of food labels in Europe and Canada. We don't have it yet on our food labels in the United States, but you can calculate it by taking the number of calories in one serving divided by the weight in grams. And I do notice our nutrition labels, most of them do have that weight in grams on there, even though that's really not a measurement we have in the US that we use a lot. But so that makes sense now why that's on there. But so then it gives you just really another guideline. So kind of like the glycemic index in all those charts, he's giving us another tool to help make healthy choices. So like the best ones to eat are, vegetables and fruits that have an energy density of less than 1. And then good would be between 1 and 2. And then above 2 would be foods that you would want to choose sparingly. So that's just another tool that he's giving us to kind of, just learn about different foods. And I really am trying in my personal life to really put all of this into play. And sometimes it can be overwhelming, but at the same time, I like learning about it. And I do science experiments on myself all the time. Like I haven't drank 100 ounces of water in the last 2 days, and I notice a big difference, huge. And when I don't get my, ratio right of my macronutrients, I notice a huge difference too. So just using all these tools is helpful to me. And it talks about how the food industry enhances, their foods, and that some cereals have more salt than potato chips, which is crazy. I'm going to start looking now at some cereals and the sodium levels in the bags of chips. It talks about battling hunger with protein and filling up on fiber. We just have a couple minutes left. The last principle is waist control. So just really focusing on removing that excess visceral fat around your waistline. I like it because if you turn to page 145, I like this story about this Greg Rex because it talks about how he exercised like a madman and he never lost any of the weight, but once he changed what he was eating, and that's what this section focuses on, is you can't really exercise. Exercise is good, but actually a healthy eating system, putting that in place first before you try and, really do any exercise, hardcore exercise is a lot healthier for you because it's safer, especially if you have a lot of weight to lose. If you're trying to exercise and you have a bunch of, excess weight, you can actually damage your knees and your joints and things. So I really liked his story, and it just talks about his experience with, he was training for marathons and everything and didn't lose the weight until he started changing how he was eating. And then that's the end of the chapter. There's a ton in this chapter 11, so hopefully you had a chance to read it.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, do take the time to read it. And you guys, if you have questions, post them in the group. That is totally cool. Jamie and I will both be looking at those. So if something comes up while you're reading and you think, man, and you want to ask about it, we can talk about it in there also. So throw them in there. So it's really helpful to have some of those and, other resources. If I could, I'll try to put I'll put the 100-calorie list in my 100-calorie list. It's got some more things on it. It's a little broader. So Jamie, what are we going to read next week?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me that, and I forgot to look. Originally I had us reading like 4 chapters in a row, but I don't know. I need to look. now the next chapters are going to go into phase 2 of the, of Dr. Anderson's book. So I let me look through there a little bit and then I'll put it online.
You can certainly start with 12 and 13.
Yeah.
And we'll probably do 14, but anyway. But please ask questions if you need to, or feel free to reach out to either of us. We'd be glad to answer some of those questions. We've both done quite a bit of research on this topic over the years. So thanks, ladies. It was wonderful seeing your pretty faces, and I hope everything goes well for you this week. And let us know if there's anything we can do for you. Have a great evening. See you next week.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.